off, we have Kathy Berry. She is the Vice President for Academic Services. We have John Lau. He's the Vice President for Business Services. Todd Fennell. He's the Vice President for Information Technology. And we have Jan Magna. She's an intern, Vice President for Student Services. I would like to welcome Dr. Buchanan, starting us off here with this student forum presentation.
Thank you. This is really the first, I don't know if it's going to be the only one because your semester is going to be ending earlier than usual, so I know that you guys will be working really hard to study for finals, and some of you even graduating on May 12th. A couple of exciting things are coming up this next year. Next year will mark the 50th anniversary of Imperial Valley College at this site. We've been here longer than 50 years, but at this site, 50 years will be in the fall semester. So that's kind of exciting. We'll have different events throughout the year. So if you're here, please join us. I wanted to assure you, a lot of rumors have been out there for the last few weeks, and I addressed it on the Facebook page. But one of the things I want to assure you is the college is not closing. The biggest rumor that we've heard is that IBC was closing July the 1st, and that is not true. In fact, not only is that not true, we're actually offering a summer session. Many of the colleges today who are facing difficult times are not able to offer summer. We were not able to offer summer last year, again, because we wanted to make sure that we had enough money to provide classes for the fall and for the spring. And we did that. So we were able to kind of adjust our course offerings, and we're able to offer a small college, which we'll hear a little bit more about that after I introduce the vice presidents. The other thing I wanted to mention is, and this has come out quite a bit, there's an assumption out there that if you're in fiscal trouble, if you're having financial problems as an institution, there's a fear out there that your classes won't count for transfer. And I'm here to tell you that IBC is fully accredited, and all of your courses will count for transfer at the university. We're accredited by WASC, and we did receive full accreditation, so you don't have to worry anything about that. Now, why did these rumors get started? Most of you have heard in the news, either on television or in the newspaper, that there is a crisis in California. There's a budget crisis. It's affecting education. It's affecting really every part of government, California government that we know of. And it's the largest crisis California has ever faced. So you're going to be hearing a lot of things about, the financial difficulties institutions and schools especially are having. You're also reading about teachers being laid off. There's a period of time that teachers have to receive a notice that they may be laid off. It doesn't mean they will be. And that window is March 15th. And so a lot of schools, in K-12 and community college, have to give a notice if there's a possibility, if we don't get the funds coming in, that we won't be able to hire some of those teachers. That happens really quite often in the K-12 system, not as often in higher education, but it does happen. We've been able to keep most of our faculty here, so that's not an issue. We may not be replacing a lot of them retiring, but we have been having to lay off people at this point in time. Now, the other piece of it is that you hear things happening about schools closing and stuff. So when you hear that, a lot of times people fear that how is this affecting Imperial Valley College? As you know, we're the only community college in the valley, unlike in San Diego where you have 9 community colleges that you can choose from. So the fear is real. If something happens to IBC, it's affecting every one of you and many people in your families and friends that you know as well. So I am here just to dispel that myth. We are not closing. We have some really wonderful technology coming up where you can kind of keep up with what's going on. We'll be introducing a new website that allows you to kind of see latest news. You already are very familiar with our Facebook page, which also kind of updates you on what's going on. So we'll be using those social media in order to keep you abreast on what's going on. So. And at this time, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask John Lau, who's our Vice President of Business Services, and he's going to talk to you a little bit more detailed about the budget and the concerns we have.
What I'd like to give you today is an overview of the financial situation of the college and why that's important. Our structure depends on finance, and so the money we have available to spend basically sets the stage for how we structure our college. And we're facing tremendous pressure from the state by cutting our funding, so it's going to trickle down to us where we're going to have to restructure, and probably in a permanent way, because as I go through these slides, you'll see that some things are changing in the state, what will impact the structure of the college. So the first thing I'd like to talk to you about is revenues. That's the first constraint when you budget, is how much money do you have to spend. So that's where you start. So I'd like to talk about that element of the budget right now. And it relates to this. This is a chart of our enrollment. And if you'll notice, this is students that were served by the college. This is students that were paid. You can see that in this high point, we're taking in more students than what we get paid for. The state sets a cap on us on how many students they'll pay us for. In the interest of trying to serve as many students in the county as possible, we were always taking more students in than what we were getting paid for. And when we go into the next slide, I'll show you how we're able to do this, but how it's not possible any longer. But what has happened is the state, with their financial difficulties, they've shrunk what they pay us. This is what we think will happen next year. So from a high point in this area, we have a structure right now in our college that is based on this type of activity. That's no longer our reality. Our reality now is an enrollment much less. So the challenge is going to be, how do we take this structure, which is no longer possible because we don't have the money to fund it, down to this, and still make it a good educational opportunity for the students. That's going to be a challenge that we'll probably be addressing in the next couple of years, and Kathy will be talking about curriculum and things like that. So if you only have one message from this slide, is that we're probably going to have reduced enrollment, so we're going to have less money. The state is also dictating maybe the objectives of the college. Before, when it was full access, we tried to accommodate that by taking in many more students. The state's saying now, we don't want that philosophy to continue. We want you to have targeted three main areas. It's transfer students, career tech, and high basic skills. So what that says is, we probably won't have many students that have that interest. Also, in talking with Jan, she'll talk a little bit, the funding that we get that helps subsidizes our tuition fees is going to be harder to get. And that's going to have some impact. We don't know what it is, but we know it is going to impact. So if you're asking me, what do I think the years out here will be? They'll probably be somewhere in here. What does that tell us? It tells us we no longer can operate like this. Our reality now is this, which is a smaller institution. And we will have to make those adjustments. So let me tell you now how we're able to afford to take in more students than we were paid for. I love this slide because it captures our financial position every year. The red is our expenses. The green is our revenues. And you can see that in here we're spending more than we're taking in. Oops. Got to adjust myself. So it's kind of like your household. If you made $100 and you're spending $120, you better have a good savings account to pay for the difference. And we had that. This represents our savings account, and you can see we had a lot of money. And what we did was, because we wanted to maximize students we could serve, we spent more than we got. So how did we pay for the difference? We used up our savings. So you can see our savings line is deteriorating. Our expenses are still up there, and our revenues. And what we saw in the first slide is we're going to have less revenues. So that means we're going to have to shrink expenses to equal revenues. We no longer have savings to cover the gap, much like your household income. If you've got expenses of 120 and you only make 80, you're going to have to downsize your lifestyle. Well, in essence, that's what the college needs to do. We need to restructure ourselves so we don't spend more than we earn. And this is the part that we're looking at now. If we did nothing, we stayed with everything we have, and most of our money is in labor and benefits, and most of those are by contract, so they're legal agreements. If we can't unwind those labor agreements, what would happen? Next year, we would be $2 million in the hole. That can never happen. So we have no choice but to address this problem. But that doesn't mean the world ends. It just means we have to be very creative on how we approach this. And it's a collective effort by everyone on campus. Because to find this kind of money you have to make significant changes. But the thing I'd like to use on this slide, we have no choice but to change our philosophy and the way we spend money so that our revenues and our expenses are equal. Because we no longer have a savings account to make up the difference. Okay, let's see this is what the budget would look like if we didn't change anything for next year. The revenues of 32,910 are down. We used to have around over 35 million, but because of the decreased enrollment that we saw on the first slide, we get less money. When you look at our expenses, because they're largely based on the old way of doing business, tied into a higher revenue figure, we're spending a lot more than we're getting. So how do I come up with I need 4 million around? This is what we're in the hole. So if we recover I round numbers. So if we recover $2 million, we're just at zero. The state mandates that you have some reserves. They mandate a minimum of 5%. If I try to meet the 5% and balance this, it's these two numbers. It's this number here that I need to recover. $3.8 million we need to recover on a $32 million budget. Tremendous challenge. And we have to make these changes in a way that still provides an educational opportunity for all of you. And it's going to be a challenge. But we have no choice but to deal with it. So while the bad news is this is happening, the good news is we're aware of it and we're going to take the steps that change it. We got a bond rating. I think there's something in the paper today about it. And I just want to kind of talk to you in case you see it. It was good news, bad news. The first grade they give you in a bond, you get an A or a B rating or A+. And that says, what is your overall financial condition? We got downgraded to an A- because of this. The second grade they give you is they grade your environment to react to what you're happening. And we went from negative last year to stable this year. Why would they give us a stable on that and downgrade us on our financial? It's because we were talking with them, we acknowledge we have a problem, and we acknowledge that we're going to develop a strategy that takes care of it. And so I know a lot of you will fulfill the impacts of that. But I want you to know we want to be a good institution, and we're not serving anyone well if we're not stable and if we're not operating within good financial principles. And this isn't that. So next year we're going to find $4 million round to balance our budget. And if you ever have any questions, I'm in the finance. Mary works with me. Always call her, and you can set up the meeting. I'm pretty open. If you ever want to talk about anything, feel welcome to do that. Thank you for your time.
I'm going to ask Jen Magnan, who's the interim Vice President for Student Services.
You want to go ahead and hit the next? Okay, now you've heard the doom and gloom. You've heard the money man tell you that we have to come up with $4 million. What I'm here to talk to you about is what that means to you, the student, in terms of the level of service that you can still expect to receive. If we are going to cut $4 million out of our budget, that means as people leave, retire, I'm retiring, there is a possibility they might not be replaced. So if you're used to having 6 people in the financial aid office and now you only have 5, what is that going to mean to the level of service that you receive as a student? Okay. Some of the things we've been doing over the last 5 years are to try to roll out less face-to-face service, more electronic service, that you take responsibility for, you as the student. So what have we done in the past 6 years? We no longer have a paper application. Your application is online. We no longer have face-to-face registration. We have WebStart. Everything happens electronically. Whether you access it from home, from the lab here on campus, from the library, from your phone, wherever you happen to access it, you no longer have to come on campus to do an application or register for class. Communication. What's the primary tool for communicating with students? Email. We don't send you letters anymore, unless they're of a legal nature. But just standard communication is all email. It's important that you read those college emails. And also Facebook and Twitter. Well, I don't know, do we Twitter? Or we tweet? I mean, excuse me. You can see why I need to retire. The last one is course recommendations. If we have fewer counselors available next year, and we have a couple of those counselors retiring, what What does that mean to you if you need to see your favorite counselor in order to get recommendations for the next semester? What do I still need to take to graduate? We have something new called DegreeWorks. You can log on to DegreeWorks. It's on the web page. You can do your own degree audit and say, I want to be a welder. What classes do I need to take? And it will tell you what classes you've already taken that meet that requirement and what you still need to graduate. Or I want to be a law enforcement major, or a nursing major, or a preschool teacher. Whatever major you want to be, you can put that into DegreeWorks and it will create a student educational plan and tell you what you need to take. Now, is that a substitute for your counselor? Not in all cases. You have individual circumstances and you need to speak to a human being and have face-to-face time. We also want to make sure that that's available to you. But it's going to be in shorter supply. So you'll need to be not waiting until the day before school starts to try to make that appointment. Service availability. There will probably be reduction of office hours. Will we be open until 9 o'clock at night? Probably not. There will be reduced availability in counseling. We'll have less money for tutors. We may have reduced library hours. All of those things mean you need to be more responsible to do the work that you need to do with us in a timely manner. Doesn't mean it's not going to be there. It means that you may need to think about having to get those tasks done a month ahead of time instead of a week ahead of time or a day ahead of time. And certainly don't wait till that first week of school. That's the worst time to get anything done. So I think our goal in the shrinking of resources is to make sure that it's not a negative effect on you at the end of the road. And we're working hard to do that. We're going to ask you to help us with that task, be proactive about your academic career, and letting us know what it is that you need from us and what we can do to help you, while at the same time utilizing all of the electronic services that we may be able to provide you in exchange for face-to-face time with an individual. So we don't know what all the changes will be. We'll be working them out over the summer and the fall. Stay involved, ask questions, be participatory, and you all will get through it. I'll be reading about you in the newspaper.
Next, I'd like to ask Kenny Berry, who's our Vice President of Academic Services, to come up and do a cartoon here.
The cartoon, you know what's going on in the world right now. Everybody wants us to cut the fat. So we're going to have an election in November, and you're going to hear a lot about how we're going to balance the budget and cut the fat. So this cartoon says in November, everybody's around, cut the fat, and you get to March, and they're saying, not that fat. And the first one is education. And I think they've come a little haywire with cutting the educational budgets. So what does all of this mean? First of all, we are having summer school. You heard that earlier. Summer school, if you don't know, starts on May 21st and goes through June 21st. If you want to go to summer school, it will be here. It's going to be small. And we're only going to have 58 classes, and somebody's going to ask, well, why 58? Well, you saw earlier the slide that John Lau showed about those FTS. A full-time equivalent student is a student who comes to college for 15 units, fall and spring, or 30 units in a year. That's an FTS. So summer is built around 200 FTS, and that turned out to be 58 classes. School for summer school is Monday through Friday. It's like the old, if you've been here a while, it's like the old winter session. But it's Monday through Friday, and classes will be longer because they're shorter. You may enroll, I saw on Facebook, I checked out IBC on Facebook, and somebody right after the schedule went up said, I hear we can only take one class. No, the guide says you can take up to 9 units without permission from Jan or her office to take more. It's going to be hard to do that in a very short period of time to take more than 9 units. This is what the guide looks like over on the corner, and this is the website where the guide know the rules. What does it mean for the rest of the year, for fall and going forward with these budget cuts? The state of California several years ago had 5 major missions for community colleges. That has shrunk to 3. The 3 core missions for California community colleges and IVC are transfer. How many of you are planning on transferring? Okay, great. How many of you are in a career technical education program? AJ? All right. And some of you are in basic skills. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands. But those are our 3 core responsibilities as an institution. The core courses in fall will probably not be impacted. And what does that mean? Those courses that you need to transfer, the English 101s, the history classes, psychology, that group that everybody on campus needs, even if you want to be a nurse or whatever, will probably not be impacted. We will do everything in our power to keep those courses intact. That doesn't mean that they're not going to fill up quickly, but we're not going to cut them any more than they were at this year. What probably will be cut are specialty courses, are those courses that are nice to take. They sort of help you if you're going to transfer, but they're not required for transfer. Those courses most likely will not be offered next year. We are in the process of meeting with Student Services and Instruction to plan the calendar for next year, the schedule for next year. We're having a very intense meeting tomorrow afternoon to look at where we're going to cut next year, where we're going to increase. So we should have a schedule out by spring break, not for you to see, but for faculty to see. Should be coming out in the next couple of years. So I just want to leave you with the following slide. When it's registration time, register. I'll tell you, I have a daughter going to a UC, and she happens to be on spring break, and she called me from home on Sunday and said, I have a pastime tomorrow. I can't get on the internet. So this is what you have to do for me because I can't miss my pastime. Don't miss your registration time because classes do fill up. Pay all your fees on time. Once you register, you have 5 days to pay those fees or you're going to be dropped. Did you all learn that this year? Yeah, the really hard way. And remember that it's not just the fees for the course. It's the associated student fee and the student health fee have to be paid. How much is that? For $15, you have to pay that. Hit your parents up quickly or whoever's paying. If you're on a wait list, how many of you are on a wait list this year? Okay, check it often. Look for the email that says if you have a chance to enroll in the class. If you don't hear anything, don't not show up. Still come to class on the first day because you can still crash even though we have wait lists. That's another falsehood I've read on Facebook. Faculty in a class do not have to take crashers. It's up to them because their job is to make sure you have a good education, and some teachers can feel like they can take more, some can't. It's up to them. But a lot of our faculty take crashers. And I will tell you this spring, faculty were shocked that there weren't more people trying to crash. So make sure next fall, if you are one of those that needs to crash a class, show up and be persistent. Going to college is about being persistent, about reading the rules, knowing the rules, and showing up. So we will have college in the fall. It probably will be a little bit, very much like it was this year as we go forward. And you can come and see me too. I have the office over to the side, and I have a wonderful staff, and they'll tell you where to come. You can come and see me. I'd like to see you when things are going well. But if you have a complaint, you can come and see me too. fill out a form.
All right, let's hear it from Kathy. So my name's Todd Fennell with IT, and so part of it, so you've heard about the challenges facing us in terms of budget, in terms of program. Well, one of the other significant challenges that faces the college is the desperate need to modernize. And modernization means a lot of things, but it's from facilities to our business practices, and much of it is oftentimes supported or influenced by IT modernizations as well. So some of the technology announcements. Now, when we talk about business practices needing to change, well, when you make improvements for the sake of efficiency or a greater service level, it only is as effective as how it impacts people and making sure that those adjustments can be made. So oftentimes from a student perspective, a lot of the changes, although we'd love to consider all of them improvements all the time, sometimes they take time to mature because it does involve changing the way, from a student's perspective, we interact with staff and faculty. It changes the way faculty teach. It changes the way staff do their work. But that all is under this umbrella of modernization and modernizing the campus to better serve you all. And one of the things I want to make sure that I point out is that it's very hard to read up here, but the technology plan is posted online, and so for any student that wants to know sort of what the vision is for the campus, where are we headed with technology, what types of improvements are we looking at making, I would really encourage you to go online, look at that. If you have questions, ask me or any of the staff at IT. We'd be happy to speak with you about it. Obviously, most of you know this is well out there by now, that your email is absolutely critical for your experience as a student on this campus. And so we did launch this year email services. Still, there's a lot of students that don't realize that along with the email service, there's storage. So you have online storage. Think of it as your flash drive in the sky, where you can put your documents. You don't have to worry about whether you have them when you get to school, that sort of thing. As well as web-based applications. So your PowerPoint, your Word, your Excel, any of the Microsoft Office applications are all available to you in that same account, where you can actually do, if your primary objective is to write a paper, for example, you have the web-based version of Word that will do a perfect job of doing it. You don't need access to the actual application on the desktop, which really enables you to now do vacationing, you're somewhere where you just have internet access, you can actually get online and do your schoolwork. Some of this, just as a heads up, there's going to be another improvement. So this year was about launching the service. Somewhere around late fall of this year, this is going to be improved to the latest version, which will be much more robust. And so you'll get a notice of that before that comes out. So right now, what we sort of encourage people to do is focus on the email portion and the web apps, because the storage piece will be improved in the fall. But it's certainly usable then. VP Magno actually talked about DegreeWorks. How many of you have used DegreeWorks? Raise your hand. Okay. So I'm sure you're using it when you've gone to see a counselor. They've probably used DegreeWorks. You're gonna see a big push for DegreeWorks this coming year, because DegreeWorks is really, ironically, a tool for you, for students. It happens to also help counselors on the back end, but it really is about you. And so you'll hear a lot about self-service. That's really the charge that we're all trying to make, and she spoke about it earlier, which is we want to empower you as a student to be able to self-serve, to do the things you need to do without relying on interaction with someone else. Not that we don't want to speak with you. It's just we want you to get served as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So what DegreeWorks will do, it's advice, it's counsel, it speeds up your time to graduation. It really helps you kind of audit where are you in terms of your coursework. If you're thinking about changing, going after a certificate or a different major, what impact, how is that going to impact you? And ultimately what this does is helps you to develop your learning plan, where you actually will have kind of a map, a roadmap for how are you going to get from where you are today to that degree goal, that certificate goal, that transfer goal, whatever the goal is. Campus-wide wireless, long time overdue. So we are right now in the final stages. We have about 170 installed as we speak. In about 2 weeks, the rest of them will be deployed. So the goal is to have campus-wide coverage. When you pull into the parking lot, any parking lot on campus, You will have Wi-Fi access anytime you're anywhere on campus, whether it's an open area outside or a classroom. Every single classroom, any instructional area will have Wi-Fi access. So, long time overdue. You will have it by the end, guaranteed by the end of this semester, but it's actually probably about when you come back from spring break, it actually will be this. There will be some changes, so watch for an announcement that comes out to you about change in the login process, because there will be different networks that you'll see when you come onto campus. Some of you may have already seen them: IBC Employee, IBC Student, IBC Open. And you'll get a communication coming out once everything is rolled out that will explain the differences between those, because there are some differences, and so there may be different times that you're going to want to choose a different network depending on what you're trying to do. And I think one of the last things I want to talk about is the One Card initiative. Because we're still getting a lot of questions from students about the new ID cards, which actually, what's that? Anybody have the new ID? Good. Okay. It's going to be really important that you get that new ID card. That new ID card is actually different than just a card that has your name and ID number on it like it used to be. It really has information on it that will allow you to access different systems on campus. So right now, we're rolling out print and copy, which I'll talk about in a moment, door access, bookstore, library services, and eventually, we envision being able to we'd like to get to the point where it's a cashless campus. You can walk on campus as long as you have your card, you can do what you need to do. So even soda machines and that sort of thing can actually be tied to that campus. So that's going to be a while before we get there. The first and most important thing was the library services, bookstore, and access to facilities. And so make sure you get your new card. If you're trying to do anything in the library, you'll notice that we have a new service that has been launched. It's in a pilot phase right now. It's only in the library, but it will roll out campus-wide very soon. And what that basically is for copying and print services. So right now, if you're in a lab or you're somewhere else on campus, when you go to print, you print and then you find your pages and then you go up to someone and pay them and that sort of thing. From here on out, you will actually use your ID card. And your ID card will actually tie to your account. You have money in that account. Every student, every semester, will get $2 automatically placed in their account. Now, why do we do that? We do that because we want you to immediately be able to print your schedule and those sorts of things, right? So you have an allotment every semester. But beyond that, if you want to begin printing forms or papers, that sort of thing, you basically put money into your account. And right now, it's only in the library, but eventually it will be, as we roll out fully, 2700 building, the new science building, and out and about on campus, you're going to have kiosks that you'll be able to walk up to for quick internet access, as well as printing documents. We're trying to make it really easy for students, no matter where you are on campus, to be able to print in copies rather than having to go to a central location. Do you want to fill questions? Okay. Afterwards, we'll fill questions. Thank you.
John Lau, who's going to talk about all this construction that's going on here.
I shared the bad news with you the first time. This is good news. That is my favorite area to work in. One of the things that we want to do for students is give them an effective learning environment. And as Victor said, the college is 50 years old, and there hasn't been much done in the last 45 to really upgrade it. And so the community has solved need also. We passed 2 bond issues worth about $135 million. And I want to clarify something. I've heard talk about, well, John, how can you do all this building? You're telling me you have no money. It's a different source of money. The bonds are only to be used for capital construction. That's the only way you can use the bond money. It can't be used for labor or anything else. So what we're in is probably about a 10-year plan to completely restore the campus and modernize it. And I know that quite a few students who have classes in the new math and science building is probably a different learning environment than if we were in one of the concept pets over in the 500. And what we want to do, not only do we think the faculty have to be effective, but we have to give you an environment that maximizes your ability to learn. So we're undertaking that, and I just want to go briefly through some of the projects we've got. This is kind of the timeline for completion. As you know, the 400 we're modernizing yet, so we'll have what's called smart classrooms. We also are interested in transportation. We've done a lot in road improvements. Hopefully, when you drive around campus now, you're not stuck out on the highway for a half hour where you get in. And also, the next new building is the career tech. If you've been in the career tech area now, you know it's very dated. We see the need for that, and that'll be done in about 18 months. It'll cost about $25 million. I'm going to give you pictures of what, this is the drop-off center in front. It'll be done sometime in summer. And again, it's to just make the traffic flow more effective. I like dirt, so I asked for a picture of that. This is the improvements from the walkway. You guys, one of the things, not only the classroom, we want the whole area to be a nice environment. And the one thing I would ask of you, because I also work with maintenance, a lot of people think the ground is their trash can. We would like the students to have much pride in their campus as we do. And that means that you don't litter the area. Someone has to pick that up. So again, while we're improving the area, we think it's a partnership with the students, and they need to help us maintain it. Again, this will be the walkthrough. This is kind of on the side over by the gym. And that's my conclusion. One thing I leave you with, we're probably going to be in some form of construction for the next 5 to 7 years. And our goal is to really make the whole campus and bring it up to modern standards. Thank you.
Okay, we actually got done a little earlier, so we have some time for some question and answers. So if you do have any regarding any of this information or anything else that we can help you with, we have two people over here with a mic. So just raise your hand and they'll come up to you. Questions? Couldn't have done that good a job.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, I already asked, but my question was for the $2 that the school gives you for the printer, well, with your ID card, if you don't use it, does it roll over to the next semester?
Yeah. And the answer is, every semester you'll get that $2. If you don't use it, you will accrue up to $3. So for example, if you don't use your $2, you enter the next semester, another $1 will be added, and then it will stop accruing at that point. But the idea is that you'll be fully using that $2 each semester, and it would get dropped out of here.
Other
I have
questions?
a question.
Yes.
Do you guys plan to put, like, instead of the ID cards, credit cards, you know? Because not everyone's going to have money in their ID card. They'd rather use their credit card. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. So one of the things, many of our students have disbursement cards, mostly tied to financial aid. And so that one card initiative also is looking at how do we combine both of those so that you're not also a credit card, disbursement card, as well as your ID. Another look will be looking at just tying it to commercially available credit cards. So that's kind of maybe phase 3, I would say.
Okay. How safe would it be to tie all that in together, being that like students usually lose their ID cards faster than lose it?
Right, so that's the concern, same concern that you have with the credit card now. And so one of the things that the message we really want to carry to students constantly is, because we know this happens a lot where a student will say, oh, you're going over to the okay. Use my ID, go over to the tutoring center and log in as me. Here's my username and password. It's going to be increasingly critical that students do not share your user ID. What we are trying to do with all of our systems on campus is to integrate them into a single identity. So your WebStar access, for example, your email password and email user account, that is your identity on campus for your electronic entrance into everything. And so it's real important that you don't share that. Well, it's the same thing with your ID card. You're going to need to kind of treat this now more like you would a debit card or a credit card, because it does have some of those connections. But all of the security features that you would normally have will also be.
Any other questions? We have one over here.
Okay, so there has been I heard that there has been negotiation in the faculty forum as well. People getting salary for lower stuff, so everyone's getting affected. Obviously, students, faculty, administrators, everyone, students in county services. So my question is, what more can students do, along with the student body here at IBC? What can you do to help out in this situation?
I'm glad you asked that question. You know, one of the most critical things in these times, when the state is short of funds, there are a lot of lobbying. There's a lot of lobbying going up and down the state for corrections, for education, for childcare, for everything. And most of those are very important things. But because you as students are directly affected by cuts in education, it becomes extremely important for you to be involved, actively involved with your legislatures. And that is, you have a march in Sacramento. You don't have to physically be there, but there's letter writing campaigns that you can be involved in. It's contacting your legislature. Those are the ways you can do it. Another way that will help, and that is what we've talked about here, is we're really expecting you to assume a lot more responsibility. Primarily what that means is you need to be a serious student. You need to be here. You need to be in your classes. You need to do the very best you can do. Don't slack. Because your success really means the success of not only our college, but education and higher education in California as a whole. So when we're successful, when you're successful, that tells everybody. It helps our economy, so everything changes. So a lot of it is really dependent on you. We provide the system. We provide the foundation for that to happen, but it only happens if you will do it. I think, do you have anything else to add? Sure.
I'd just like to add, we're just 4 voices. Students are 11,000 voices on this campus. Help us dispel these rumors. Help us keep the word out there. IBC stays open. The school is not going to close. We are going to have a small summer, but a fully operational fall. Our classes are still going to transfer. All the credit is there. We hope to make the impact on you, each individual student, and your educational goal as minor as possible. Yes, fees went up to $46 a unit. That's a state decision, not a local IBC decision. Yes, it is going to be harder to get financial aid and the BOG fee waiver, but we want to work with you to try to mitigate those negative consequences. And what we'd like your help in making sure that the students have the correct information. When you hear a group of students say, oh, I heard IBC lost their accreditation, my classes aren't going to count, I can't get a transcript. Tell them, you know for a fact that's not true. Your classes are as good tomorrow as they were yesterday. So have your 11,000 voices count.
I'm going to add to that. You need to be proactive with the state, you need to be proactive with our local government, but you also need to let us hear your voice. I'm in charge of accreditation at IBC. We need your participation on committees. We need your participation on our accreditation task force. Our accreditation team will be, our college will be visited next year. I hope next year that there are more students at our committee meetings. If you don't agree with something or you have an idea, speak up, because we need to hear your voice internally as well as Sacramento needs to hear your voice.
Just to add to what our 2 vice presidents just mentioned, this spring semester, Vice President Magno mentioned that we were waiting for a lot more students to be here. We expected to be busting at the seams. That didn't happen. Much of that reason was not because we didn't offer the courses. It was because rumors got out there that, oh, well, they dropped me, I won't be able to get in, there's not going to be any room, somebody else got my slot, they're not going to accept crashers. All these rumors really kind of led to having less students show up on that first day. So we want to emphasize, don't let that happen to you, because it's important that we keep our doors open for you. So, next question.
I have a question about, I'm a humanities major here on campus, but a lot of my friends are of like a medical field or whatever. There's a lot of different majors, but a lot of majors were dropped because of the availability of the classroom. Is there any plan to bring back like some of those majors back, like the pharmacology? I know that one was dropped, and I know a few more were before, and I want to know if there's any.
I'm going to let our Vice President services, which all the classes are.
We've only dropped one certificate from our schedule, and that was the auto collision certificate. Pharmacology has not been dropped. The faculty member that taught pharmacology got employment outside of Imperial County, but was replaced with another teacher. We aren't dropping majors. A lot of what's happened is over time at a college, majors change names, they morph into something else, but the students that were in a major, I'm going to use one, university studies used to be a transfer major, it's now called transfer studies. People that were in university studies are now in transfer studies. So the major didn't go away, it just changed its name. Does that make sense? But we have no intention of dropping majors or certificates. We have a few that had one person in them, and so they've been put on hiatus. But we only are allowed to drop majors once a year, and that's in December with the Chancellor's office, and there's no plans to drop them.
Any other questions?
Just to add on my previous question, I would like to suggest that maybe on your next faculty forum, for the college to continue to strive forward and continue its, it's going to need the cooperation of everyone, and by everyone I mean the students as well as faculty, staff, and everyone. So the student body this year, we've done the IBC newsletter. That's a new project, and next semester we were trying to get more involved with students, like more face-to-face contact, like the ASG president giving a speech maybe once a month, get feedback from the students. So that's one thing we're trying to do, because as you can see around us, not a lot of students are active, not a lot of students come to these kinds of things. That's something we want to change. So in order to do that, I want to also suggest if you guys can also talk to faculty, have them talk to their students, trying to convince them, get more involved, because a lot of students have the mentality that it's only IBC, they can just transfer to another college or another university and it's not going to affect them, but that's not the case. So we want to get that mentality out of the way also. So there's also in one of the SLOs, the global awareness thing, that thing kind of doesn't go around, so at least have a state awareness of what's going on. Get the faculty to tell the students, yes, get the faculty to tell the students what's going on, and for them to be more active and join these communities. We're going to try to do that, but we need the cooperation of everyone.
Thank you, Beto. Actually, I'm very, very happy to hear that. And we're trying to really kind of help with that. We've already had faculty staff forums. We had one 2 weeks ago. We're going to have another one next week. Students, by the way, it's not closed to anybody, so anybody's welcome to go there. Even though it's geared toward them, it doesn't mean that students are excluded, so you're welcome to come as well. And that is the message we want to come forward. We found that many of the rumors that we first heard about didn't come from students coming to my office or Jan's or Kathy's office or Todd's or John's. They came to the teacher in the classroom, and the teachers were asking us, what's going on? We're hearing that there's not going to be summer school, or that we're closing the doors July 1. So that's why I put out that email to the staff first, and then I kind of had it copied into Facebook. Because you're right, a lot of students have daily contact with faculty members and other staff where they may not with administration as a whole. So yes, that is the message we're going forward, so that they can educate the students in their classes and anywhere else around campus. But to help with that as well, we created a website that is updating. It's available to the community, to students, faculty, and staff. And we're hoping, what we want to do is update that on a weekly basis, tell you what's going on in the state, what's happening at IBC, how things are coming down. These forums are videotaped. Right now, the forum we had 2 weeks ago with the faculty and staff, it's linked in there so you can actually see the videotape. Scroll it, it's coming along, so you go to wherever you want to on that one. So yeah, those are exactly the kinds of things that get the word out. And I'm really glad to hear that you're wanting to be more involved with the general population of students by getting them out there. So I think together, because this is not a problem we're going to solve in administration or just faculty or just students. It really is going to take all of us to make IBC to be what it is to you and what it will be for the future generations to come. So, anybody else have any other questions? Yes.
As a student athlete here at IBC, I'm more concerned with the sports here. I understand that there will be a lot of cuts, especially affecting the athletic department. And that means that we won't be able to, we have to raise our own funds in a way to travel to other sports, as for example, tennis. We have a match right now when we're playing Palomar. And to go to Palomar, which is a part of school, it costs money to get that gas. And I'm pretty sure a bunch of other sports as well travel to maybe farther distances. In the summer, the preseason, before we actually start, we go to Phoenix for a jamboree where we play other junior colleges in the Phoenix area. And we stay over for 3 days. Because of that budget cuts, we're not going to be able to have that extra practice for us to actually get better. In what way will we as a school or faculty or the district or anything can do to help with that?
Okay, I was going to answer that, but actually we have the vice president over athletics right here, Andy Berry, so she'll answer.
Don't I look like a child? We are not cutting sports, but what we have asked the athletic department to do is to offset the cost to the college through fundraising. Every college up and down the state is doing that. And as you probably know, athletics is partially funded through fundraising. So we've asked them to think about creative ways to raise money to offset the expenses. Our sports has to travel. There isn't a community college in the Pro Valley. We know that. So we know that we have to put money in travel to get our athletes to the competition. It is also true that in the state of California, I'll be honest with you, there is a lot of push, not from me and not from the president here, to eliminate athletics at the community college level. I think the president and I are committed to not doing that. We did suspend soccer this year. Soccer will be back next year. We have athletics. It's going to increase the whole entire athletic budget by $15,000. That's not a lot of money when you're bringing two sports back. So our coaches do a tremendous job of trying to go out and ask for donations, do fundraisers, have camps. Maybe you can have a tennis camp and charge in the summer for students to, for kids to come out and you can teach them tennis, and that money goes into an account to help offset your travel. But the sports are in the budget for next year. They have not been cut yet. Again, you have to advocate for that because our legislatures in Sacramento would like for us to eliminate sports. So your voices need to be heard. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's your voice they need to hear because they hear ours and they get kind of tired of ours. But you're the one that can tell them your story. And so you need to do that. Okay?
Because I'm also involved in the AC as well, among other things, but I've already spoken to the coaches and stuff about the fundraising and stuff, and this is one reason why I'm hoping to be re-elected in the AC Center next year so I can help organize and push those fundraisings for us to do. And so I was just wondering, because telephone, I didn't want to play the game of telephone again, what one person says to be changed to what I hear, so I wanted to insert this. Thank you.
Excellent, and I'm really glad to hear it. I do want to make one additional comment. Sports at the community college, at the 4-year level, is not different than the sports and other extracurricular activities, really the sports and the arts that are being attacked in K-12 as well. They're limiting resources, so you do have to find other ways to keep those going. I do have to say one thing. This community, Imperial Valley, is one of the strongest supporters of extracurricular activities for our youth than any other county in the state of California. They're here at your games. They're here to support you. Many times all you have to do is get out there and ask. Oftentimes they don't know that you need these kind of things. This community will support that. I've seen it. If you've ever had in the fair, you see how many parents are out there helping with the livestock auctions. or any of the other activities, they're there. This community truly supports our youth and those kinds of extracurriculars, so take advantage of that. And also, we have some games here. Fill those seats. Fill those seats. There's a lot of supporters there. Get those seats filled because that shows a lot of enthusiasm in sports, so I commend you for doing that. Anyone else? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Now we've gone into the cutting of departments. I want to know, I'm concerned with what about what's going to happen with American Sign Language? Because I know a lot of people are, want to get into classes, but they don't know if they're going to be offered. And I think it's really, really necessary because it's not like any other language. It's like there's deaf people all over the place. It's not like, oh, I'm going to have we don't all have the risk of having a French child, but we do risk having a deaf child. So it's really like kind of a community thing that we have to do. So I don't know, I'm concerned.
Oh, Vice President Barry just told me American Sign Language is not being cut. We've had some problems filling only because we've had, you have to have special certification to teach American Sign Language. So in the past, we've had some difficulties finding people who are qualified to teach it, but there isn't any plans to cut American Sign Language. And you're absolutely right. That's one that cuts across everything in terms of languages, deaf and hard of hearing, and so families oftentimes rely on those kind of things. And also the careers that you go into. Oftentimes you're going to, if you're dealing with the public, you're bound to run across someone who has that disability, and for you to be able to communicate with them is very important. So I agree with you, but we have no plans to cut that out.
Then that was the same for interpreting and other things that get involved with based on.
Yeah, there are no plans to do that at this point in time. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have one right here.
If you guys aren't planning, you're not planning to cut it, but are you guys planning to add more availability of the courses? Because, for example, this semester we didn't have it until 3. Obviously, you're not having it next semester for the current, but are you guys going to be offering that more often, or is it just going to
What
be
classes?
American Sign Language level 3?
Well, classes are on cycles, so they're on a cycle for, at any college, they look at, if you came in in a fall and you should progress through classes, they should be there. Sometimes things get out of cycle or students get out of cycle. So although we're not going to cut American Sign Language, we'll see what 103, where it falls, and it's up to the committee on where they put it, whether it's going to be the fall or spring. I will tell you that next year, we say we're not cutting, and you might be thinking, okay, if we're not cutting anything and they're in trouble, what's going to happen? Your class sizes will increase. And that's how we're going to be able to go ahead and offer the classes we do, is we're going to be increasing how many people are in a classroom. So, but I will check on 103. Was it offered and canceled? Is that what happened?
No, it wasn't offered this semester.
Then it should be maybe offered.
And oftentimes, based on, there may not be a lot of students in there, so you've got to be able to get enough people who are ready for level 3 before you can offer. Because we can't afford to offer a class with 5 or 6 students. We have to have 4 classes in order to stay afloat. So, any other questions? Yes.
This is regarding the buildings. Is there any plan to, I know we're helping with like the parking and we're helping with like the Career Tech Center, but is there any like plan to boost on certain departments? Like let's say the art department, yeah, we have the art gallery, but like is there like a plan to like be able to support more things? Because I know we're in a warehouse right now, and it gets really dry in there, and it's hard for a lot of people to actually do their stuff in there, and it's really difficult.
But those are one of the 50-year-old buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 years when you bring your girlfriend or wife back, and I used to look at the building now, it's like that. That's going to be the end of, when we say the Career Tech, that tin structure up there, that's going to be renovated also. And like I said, we will probably be in construction for the next 10 years, but it depends on how fast we can sell the rest of our bonds, and that depends on the value of houses, because that's what finances our bonds. But on the board right now, within 2 years after, it would be renovated. So that's a tail end of the project. So if you're still running 2 years, you'll be able to benefit from the renovation.
Well, you can come back. Yes. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank all of you for coming. It obviously shows to me that you have an interest in your school. I appreciate this, and we hope to have more of these, again, sponsored by the ASG or co-sponsored by the ASG in the future. So, again, thank you all very much for coming.
No, she was off.
Yeah.